Welcome, baseball fans, to week 2 of Major League Baseball's Power Rankings. Now, we've had some new subscribers this week, so thank you very much. And for all current subscribers, thank you for continuing to tune in on a weekly basis. I'm excited to bring the news to you today of all the new Power Rankings of this week. Granted, this is only week 2. There's a long way to go. There's 26 weeks in the baseball season. However, keeping track of all this and doing all the analyticals and the numbers, this is the highlight of my week. I love doing this. I love talking about baseball. I love sharing with you a completely objective, unbiased approach to power rankings. And more or less what inspired me to do this was every single week I would take a look at the power rankings published by Major League Baseball or ESPN. And I would always notice that they would be highly subjective in how they were doing things. For example, week 1 of ESPN was they had Boston in the top 5 when they were not doing well. I mean, yeah, I get their explanation was because they won the World Series last year, but teams go through so much turnover during the offseason, it's not a fair or objective approach to power rankings. So, to give you a quick summary of how rankings are determined here, and the tiebreaker associated with it, is a 9-inning win is 3 points. That's where all these points come in here. Every single day, I'm tallying up the wins and losses, overtimes for all the teams, and assigning 3 points for a 9-inning win, 2 points for an extra innings win, 1 point for an extra innings loss, and 0 points for a 9 innings loss. The reason I do that for extra innings is because if a team is winning in the 9th and they can't close out a team, they have to give them one of their points, at least one, because they couldn't hold them back, couldn't shut down the game. However, if a team is on the verge of losing and they end up coming back and forcing extra innings, they deserve the credit for forcing extra innings and pushing the team to the brink. Therefore, when they get to extra innings, both teams get at least a point. The winner obviously gets that second point because they did win the game. Therefore, there's a little bit of differentiation because Major League Baseball awards wins and losses. They're not keeping track of that extra inning stuff. But I find it adds an element of interest to the game, makes it. It also provides some differentiation between the points here, because if you have just 3 points, 0 points, then during the season you're going to have teams that are just like they're tied in record in the division. You're also going to have tied in points, but if you calculate in there your extra innings points, then you have some differentiation for power rankings. And ultimately, everything is based upon wins, because the team that has the most wins wins the division. The team that has the better record going into the World Series gets home field advantage, and the teams that win the games in the playoffs advance and ultimately win the World Series. So there's a lot of emphasis on wins. However, as you can see here, there are some ties in your points, especially early on when you haven't had a ton of games yet. And so to differentiate who is really doing better for equal number of points, our first tiebreaker is I take the run differential of that week. So for example, just this past week, whoever was 15, which we'll reveal shortly, they scored 18 more runs than they gave up. You're taking your total amount of runs scored to help please the fans who love a good offensive game, and you're subtracting the runs given up. So you're catering to the teams that like the fans that like the good pitching performance, and you're taking the combination, you're getting your run differential to provide tiebreaker. Now, we have additional tiebreakers such as strength of opponent, as well as cumulative run differentials and other factors. And I will happily go into how that works should we have that. But we had it once last week. We don't have that this week, and I don't see it happening a lot during the course of the season. So just to give you a quick rundown of how the point system works, let's go ahead and get into our power rankings, shall we? Now, everybody finishes someplace, so somebody has to be 30. And coming in at 30 this week is Colorado. They are down 5, and after having gone 0 wins, 4 losses, and overtime loss, playing Atlanta and San Francisco, they kind of earned the right to finish in last this week. They're down 5 from last week, and They lost some key pieces during the offseason with free agencies, so it totally it makes sense that they would have some weaknesses this year. And even with the extension to Arenado, they've obviously shown on the field that they don't have the pieces working and clicking yet because they haven't won a game this week. So they, as a result, they get to start off our power rankings at number 30. Coming in at number 29, the Chicago White Sox. Now, one thing I should emphasize is even though they won today, power rankings are cut off on Saturday. So this is all games Sunday of last week through Saturday of this week. I realize that they're finishing off a weekend series on Sunday, but in order to do a video and calculate all the numbers to do a Sunday power rankings, I have to cut off all the games on Saturday. So with Chicago coming into this, they both won and lost a game against the New York Yankees, but despite that, they're still down 9 because they were 1-5 on the week. They won 1 game, lost 5, having played Tampa Bay and New York this week. So they've fallen a little bit from last week, and that's to be expected when you don't do well during the course of the week. So even though they won today to take 2 out of 3 from New York, today's game will count towards next week. So coming in at number 28, and I'm sure not too many people are surprised by this, the Miami Marlins. I'm sure some people might even be wondering, why aren't they 30? Well, the fact of the matter is they were actually down 4 from last week, having played both Cincinnati and Philadelphia, and winning 1 game and losing 5, same way Chicago won 1 and lost 5. So their run differential is absolutely dreadful. They've given up 22 runs more than they've scored, and they've only managed to accumulate through the whole season 12 points. It's 3 wins. 2 of those came against Colorado, who's number 30, to open up the season. So with all of the rookies and amateurs and prospects that they're trying to fill team with, they don't have a lot of veteran presence. They don't have any talent that is notable. So the fact that they're not even 30 is kind of, I gotta give hats off to that. It's going to be a long season for Miami fans, and I'm sorry. I really am. I would love to be able to watch them be more competitive within their division and do well this year. But everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall when they fire-sailed all their players off to Milwaukee, New York, and everywhere else. So they get to finish 28th this week. Coming in at 27 are the Kansas City Royals, who are actually the same spot they were last week. After playing Seattle and Cleveland, they went 2 wins, 4 losses, and an overtime loss. So slightly better than the people they're ahead of, but not really great compared to the rest of the league. Hence, they're on the bottom row here. This whole row are teams that did not have very good weeks. This week is so-so, and then you have your all-stars up here, teams that were just killing it this past week. Hence, all the point totals. So, coming in at 26. Boston Red Sox, who are up 3 from last week. They did manage to bring them out of the gutter a little bit. They had 3 wins and 2 losses playing Toronto and Baltimore, both division rivals in which if you are an elite team, you need to win these kinds of games. And so they did have a little bit of a bounce back, being able to come up 3 from last week. But they have a long way to go to get that team back into shape here and compete for the year. They have all the pieces they need. They have the majority of their team that won the World Series last year. They're just off to a slow start, and as evidenced by their 5-10 record this year, it shows that they might be starting to put things together, but they're not there yet. Coming in at number 25 are the Chicago Cubs, who are also up 3 this week, having played Pittsburgh and the LA Angels, going 3 wins and 3 losses. But for Cubs that started off struggling a little bit at 5-9 on the season, that's not too shabby going up against the Angels and Pittsburgh. Both teams that are in of their own right, kind of trying to identify themselves and find their place. So it's kind of okay. They had a so week, 3-3, but they didn't start off too hot. That's just why they're on the third row instead of the second row this week. So more power to them. They got some good talent in there, John Lester and among others. Perhaps they can put it together for themselves as the weeks continue to transpire. They have Joe Madden, who got them to the World Series, and he also took the Tampa Bay Rays to the World Series. So they have the management players that they need. It's just a matter of putting it together. Coming in at number 24 are the Cincinnati Reds, who are up 6 from last week. Last week, they were all the way down there. They did not start the season well. Having said that, they went 4 wins and a loss, so they definitely earned their 6th ranked jump, having beaten Miami and St. Louis. Now, granted, beating Miami is not exactly a trophy because they aren't a very good team in the first place, but they're winning the games you gotta win if you want to rise in rankings. So going 4-1 this week at a 5-8 record is definitely helpful to them. If they continue to beat up on the team they're supposed to beat up on, they could very well see themselves climbing up. If they regress, then they'll stay down in the third row. Coming in at number 23, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, these guys have got a tough road in the same division with San Francisco, San Diego, and LA Dodgers. Good luck to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They are not the same team that they were in 2001 when they won the World Series. Having said that, they are down 9 this week after having gone 1 win and 5 losses against Texas Rangers and the San Diego Padres. San Diego Padres, honestly, they are just, with Manny Machado and the other pieces they added over the offseason, early on, good luck against San Diego. We'll see how well that turns out in the dog days of summer. But against Texas, you couldn't even hold your own. So, having not had a great week and being 6-9 so far on the season, they fell 9 points to 23. Coming in at 22 are the Toronto Blue Jays, who are down 3 this week after having won 2 and lost 3 playing Boston and Tampa. Now, granted, they did do well against Boston, but not so well against Tampa. Tampa is surprising a lot of people this year, and we'll get into where they come in as we get through the power rankings here. But having said that, Toronto is 5-10 on the season, and they had a 2-3 week, which is a little below average. Hence, they fell 3 points. But they're also in a very rough division against Tampa, New York, and Boston. So hanging 10 there is pretty much the best you can hope for. So good luck to them. Speaking of their own division, coming in at 21 are the Baltimore Orioles, who are also down 3, having played Oakland and Boston, and winning 2, losing 5. So they had a decent showing against Boston, but not so much against Oakland. They're 6-9 on the season, and they're showing wear for the tear. They had a decent start with winning some games against the opening series in New York, and since then they've come back down to earth a little bit, leveling out with their weeks. They had a major fire sale last year, so they really aren't expected to do well. So anything, if they can get above the third row, more power to them. Coming in at number 20 are the Texas Rangers, who are down 10 from last week. The Texas Rangers won 1, lost 3 against Arizona and Oakland. They had a rough week. They didn't get to play a full week of games, and the games they did play, they didn't do very well in. Being at 6-7 on the season, they are fortunate to even be in the middle row here. So, but they do get to manage to stay above all the teams who are really struggling for the year. Having said that, going on to number 19, coming in are the Minnesota Twins, 20 points, run differential +3. And the Minnesota Twins are -6. They were up here last week, and they've fallen a little bit due to the fact that they went 2-2 against New York and Detroit on the season. They are, again, this is where they should be in the middle rankings. They're being winning as many games as you're losing here. They're trying to find their footing, they're trying to establish their identity, and they're trying to win some games. But they've been very, very mediocre in doing so. Hence the reason that they are down 6 this week. Coming in at number 18 are the San Francisco 49ers, who are up 4 this week. San Francisco having played San Diego and Colorado, being 3 wins, 2 losses, and an overtime overtime win. So playing San Diego, sorry, they're doing well this year, which you can probably tell. San Diego is probably going to be in the top rank the way I keep talking about how well they're doing. Having said that, the San Francisco 49ers are more or less rebuilding. They're having an average week, and they're 7-9. 7-9 is a losing record, but it's also early in the season. Based upon this week alone, they're right there in the middle, towards the lower end. But they are not doing horrible. They're not down here or anything. But they got a ways to go if they want to come back up here. Coming in at number 17, always an interesting team to watch, the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are down 2 this week, having played Chicago Cubs and the Washington Nationals. They're 7-6 on the season, and they've won 2, lost 3, and had an overtime extra innings game. I always find them interesting because they have the pieces in place to pull off wins, and then they just don't. Sometimes they surprise you, other times they don't. Having gone through Chicago and Washington this week, they have very much a mediocre season. I'm interested to see how well they do during the rest of the season. Do they fall? Do they drop? Do they stay the same? Their manager, Clint Hurl, I believe, it could be Arizona, but anyway, the Pittsburgh Pirates always make things interesting during the season, though they never show up much in the postseason. They lost key pieces to other teams like New York, and then after Philadelphia with Andrew McCutchen. But him aside, you have other pieces in there like Melky Cabrera, who played decent outfield. Coming in at number 16 are the New York Yankees, in which, even though I am a Yankees fan, I will not play favorites. This has to be completely objective and unbiased, or it's worthless. Having said that, the New York Yankees, having getting swept by the Houston and going 1-1 against the Chicago White Sox, fell 5 points in the power rankings down to 16. They just lead the league in injuries, and no one's going to feel sorry for them for that. And I realize this whole next man up thing, but that next man up is not as good as the player on injury, so they're not going to perform as well. Your Clint Frazier is not as good as your Aaron Hicks. He's a call-up. The Kai Igawa is not as good as Gary Sanchez. They're filling a spot, but their talent is not where the person on injury is. So they're struggling a little bit, and it's showing in their power rankings as they continue to slide down a little bit. Coming in at 15 are the Washington Nationals. Washington is up 6 from last week. Congratulations, Washington. Playing in a division with Philadelphia and New York. That's great to see you being able to hold your own. They won 3, they lost 1, and had both an overtime win and an overtime loss in the course of a week playing both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Now, Philadelphia has been off to a surprising start this year, so the fact that they were able to do well in a week in which they played both Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I give them a lot of credit. They're holding their own, and they're rising in the power rankings as a result. Coming in at number 14, the Detroit Tigers, with which, here's a nice little surprising team here this year. This is a team with which all analysts said they're going to finish the bottom of the league. They're rebuilding, and be that as it may, I don't know if the players know that. They're down 6 this week from last week, but at the same time, they're not playing horribly. They did get Cleveland and Minnesota, their own division, having gone 2 wins and 3 losses. So while they had a very mediocre week, they're down to 14. They're not up to 14. they're playing better than analysts thought they would. So I give them credit for that. And so even though they did not have a great week, we'll see how it goes. They did get to go through Cleveland and Minnesota, which are never easy to do, especially when it's a division rival. Coming in at number 13 are the St. Louis Cardinals, who are made a massive jump. I think it's tied for the largest jump of 13 in the entire power rankings, being a rise of 13 there. They played both the LA Dodgers and the Cincinnati Reds, having won 5 and lost 1. Now, having done that against the Dodgers and then going in there and taking care of business against Cincinnati, they definitely earned their kudos this week. They definitely had a strong week. And while they've only improved to 8-6, having been down here last week, they're definitely had a very strong showing against some decent teams and have definitely earned their stripes this week, coming in at 13. Coming in at number 12 is the Cleveland Indians, the same team that lost the World Series to the Chicago Cubs a few years ago. They're still a favorite to win their division this year. We'll see how well that works out. They are in the same rankings as last week, having had a very mediocre week, going 3-3 against Detroit Tigers and the Kansas City Royals. The Kansas City Royals, with whom are not a great team. And the Detroit Tigers are just kind of a mediocre this year, but they're outperforming how the analysts thought they would. So having not played particularly strong teams and going very mediocre, they're divisional games. You can't chalk up a whole lot to a win-loss record based upon the rankings of their opponents when it's division. It's like if you take New York, Boston, or Philadelphia and Dallas for football, for example, or Boston and Montreal for hockey. And when you're playing divisional games, it's all bets are off. It doesn't matter how good you are, how good they are. It's kind of like kill the cow, may the best man win kind of thing. So I don't take a lot of stock in the fact that they went average against their division opponents, because your division is going to play you harder than anybody else's. Coming in at number 11 are the Atlanta Braves, who are up 5 from last week, having won 4 and lost 2 against the Colorado Rockies and New York Mets. The Colorado Rockies, with whom finished 30th, is a game in which you really are supposed to win. They are not doing very well, and if you want to do well, you need to beat up on and win the games you're supposed to win. Now, having gone in and played the New York Mets, and still held your own. Yeah, as you can see, the New York Mets are clearly in the top row here. So that shows that they are holding their own, playing well, and trying to get up there on the board. Maybe next week, depending on how they do this week, they might crack the top 10. But speaking of the top 10, the all-important favorite. Everyone loves the top 10. The 11 through 30, everyone's like, but everyone loves a top 10. Who are the best teams in the league? Well, for week 2, we start off the top 10 with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, coming in at 24 points and a positive 10 run differential. The LA Angels are up 13 points. Like St. Louis, they are tied for the biggest jump in power rankings. I realize that the large jumps are very uncommon. But they've been common the first couple of weeks due to the fact the season's been very young. As the season progresses on, I'm expecting that those jumps will be a lot smaller because you'll have a lot more games to base them on, because the points are cumulative. The run differential is only weekly. So, having said that, the Angels got to start off the week this week at 10. And get to crack into the top 10 for a change. Coming in at number 9 are the Philadelphia Phillies, with whom are in the same spot they were last week. The reason being they were up in the top 5 the first week, and then as they continued into the March 31st, they were in the top 5, and then last week they were in 9, just like they are this week. Reason being is because even though you have some great talent, they had a very mediocre week. They had 3 wins, 2 losses, and an extra innings game, having gone through Washington and Miami. Miami, you're supposed to beat up on, and they went 1-1 against Miami. And Washington, you were expecting them to do better than that, but they had a very mediocre week, going 3-2-1. So as a result, because they started off the season strong, they got to maintain their place in the top 10, but they stayed basically the same. Coming at number 8 are the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now this may be a surprise if anybody's been watching the first couple of weeks, because the first couple of weeks the LA Dodgers were powerhouses. They were just killing with Manny Machado and team just doing very well. During the course of this current week, they dropped 6 because when they went to go play St. Louis and Milwaukee, they won 1 and lost 5. When you start off up in the top 5 and then you have a terrible week, you fall a little bit. Not far enough to fall off the top 10, but definitely it's going to be reflected in your power ranking for the week. Coming in at number 7, the New York Mets, who are down 1 last week after having played Minnesota and Atlanta, winning 3 and losing 3. A team that, again, started off strong in week 1 and then had a very mediocre week. Having a mediocre week when you're ranked previously very well does not kill you per se, but you still reflects in your power rankings at number 7. Coming in number 6, the Milwaukee Brewers, in which they are down 3 last week after Christian Yelich and company had a phenomenal start to the season, breaking records with home runs. They started off very strong week 1. This week, they've dropped a few. Having played the Milwaukee, LA Angels and LA Dodgers, they had a nice little run through LA, going 3-3. The Dodgers being the stronger team, but LA still trying to fight their way up. LA being, I know I did them right, didn't I? Yeah, they were number 10. So, coming in, now we're down to our top 5. The all and excitement of who are the 5 best teams this week. Coming in at number 5, the Houston Astros, probably no surprise, having pitchers like Justin Verlander and players like Bregman and Altuve and company. Everyone would be probably surprised if they weren't in the top 5. Like Milwaukee, they scored 30 points, but they had a better run differential, scoring 13 more runs this week than they were scored against. They are up 12. Last week, they were in a middle row. This week, they're having swept New York, really helped their numbers this week, having gone 6-0 against the New York Yankees and the Seattle Mariners. They had a phenomenal week. You couldn't be happier than having a 6-0 week. So that brings them up a massive jump of 12 points. Congratulations to the Houston Astros. I wish you success, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you continue to perform during the course of the season. This is the same team that finished with 101 wins last year, had the second best record in the major leagues. And so even though they lost players like Dallas Keuchel and others, they're still there to play. And they're still winning and doing very well. They're finding ways to win games. I saw some of those games against New York, obviously, because I'm a Yankees fan. But besides that, you're talking about a team that would start behind and come back to win. When you can do that on a consistent basis, that's very demoralizing to your opponent. You don't want to get behind, but it also gives you a lot of confidence that it doesn't matter what the other opponent does early in the game, you're going to find a way to win games. And that's what matters. Coming in at number 4, the Oakland Athletics are up 1 from last week. They are continuing to ride a strong season performance. This week, having gone through Baltimore and Texas, winning 4 and losing 2, it's very respectable. Realistically, what every coach wants, they know you're not going to win every game, but if you can win 2 out of 3, or in a given week 4 out of 6, that's everything you could ask for going into a week, and that enables them to maintain a strong spot, being in the top 5. Coming in at number 3, the San Diego Padres. They are up 4 from last week. And as I've mentioned here before, they are doing surprisingly well compared to last year. They've retooled, they've got some big names, and they're doing well. Having said that, we don't know how they're going to perform during the course of the season, but you're in a division against San Francisco and Arizona, so you have some teams in which you're supposed to win against. And by getting those wins, you are going to continue to stay above the boards. As now it's going to be interesting how when they go up against the other elite teams here to see how well they continue to perform, but they are doing well, having gone 5 wins and 2 losses against this division rivals Arizona and San Francisco. So you're winning the games you're supposed to win. You've earned the right to stay at number 3 this week. Congratulations to San Diego. And it'll be interesting to see how well you progress through the season. If you're able to maintain a strong start or if you come into some struggles. During the course of the season, you're going to run into some teams that are slumping, other teams that are on hot streaks. You're going to go through injuries. Every team does. How well do you handle that remains the question. Coming in at number 2, Tampa Bay Rays. They are riding the whole opener objective where you bring in a reliever or closer to start a game and then you hand it off to a long reliever. They are the only team that has been successful for pulling that off, but they've been doing it so well that they've risen 2 points from 2 spots from last week, having gone 5 wins and 1 loss against the Chicago White Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays. Beating Toronto means you're winning the games you're supposed to win. Beating Chicago means you're beating up on the teams that are not doing well, which is everything you're supposed to be doing if you are a top-tier team. And they're using their formula better than anybody else, and they're riding it to success. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Rays. And if you look at the board, you'll see there's one team missing. I wonder who that is. Congratulations to the Seattle Mariners, in which, while some analysts out there on ESPN, Major League Baseball, and other sources might have them in the top 5, top 10, they're not giving them full credit for the fact that they have been in the top spot since the beginning of the season, having gone into Tokyo and defeated the Oakland Athletics 2 games, then continuing on to play well. This week having won 4, lost 2, and having an extra innings win, playing both the San Diego Padres, or no, not the San Diego Padres, but the Kansas City Royals and the Houston Astros. They're showing that they are here to stay. They're kicking it with 14 more runs than they've lost, and they're raking up a league-leading 37 points. So congratulations to Seattle Mariners. You get to stay above at spot number 1 for the 3rd consecutive video, 2nd consecutive week. I would love to hear all your thoughts and opinions upon the power rankings, how they're calculated, and where teams stand. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Please feel free to leave your comments in the section below. And if you happen to be just surfing the web and happen upon this channel, please feel free to hit the like and subscribe. And until next week, I would love to hear from all of you and get your thoughts, your opinions, what you liked, what you didn't like about this. And till then, enjoy the Sunday games. I realize at this hour, most of them are over or ending. But hopefully this gives you something to enjoy with your family, or while you're just looking for something to do for a few minutes. So until next week, have a great Sunday and a great week. This has been a pleasure. Have a good day.